Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whatever time it is that you're joining me for this video. Thanks once again for clicking on the PenBoyRoy Fountain Pen Review channel. The subject of today's video is the Pineider La Grande Bellezza Forged Carbon Fountain Pen. Before I get started, and I've said this a few times already, I've started a new podcast. It's a lot of fun, and although not fountain pen reviews, they are discussions about subject matter involving pens. The podcast is called the PenBoyRoy Pentertainment Podcast. But be forewarned, it's not for children. You have been warned. Now, on to the review. I've reviewed almost every Pineider pen out there. It's no secret that I am a huge fan of the works of the great Dante Del Vecchio, aka Double DV. So if you want more detailed information on the brand history, check out my previous Pineider pen reviews. As for our pen today, Dante has once again pushed the boundaries of pen making and created a pen using forged composite. What on earth is that, you ask? Good question. Forged composite, also known as forged carbon or forged carbon fiber, is a paste of fibers of finely diced fibers consisting of approximately 500,000 fibers per square inch that are mixed with a resin and then squeezed out, similar to how McDonald's chicken nuggets are squeezed out, to make almost any shape. This material is also capable of being compressed into the shape of the desired product. Forged composite or forged carbon differentiates itself from traditional carbon fiber in that it is typically easier to make products out of it, while maintaining all the benefits of its original counterpart. The ease of manufacture does come at a cost, however, oftentimes raising the overall costs of production. This material was developed around the year 2007 by the car company Lamborghini and the golf club maker Callaway. Late this year, Double DV decided to take this material and turn it into one of his La Grande Bellezza fountain pens, effectively and successfully merging classic beauty with modern technology. This pen is equipped with every evolution seen from the La Grande Bellezza pen series before it, including the push-button, safe mystery filler. It's kind of really cool. In my personal opinion, this is the closest thing you can get to a fountain pen made of adamantium. It even looks like the liquefied adamantium used during the Weapon X project in that terrible movie, X-Men Origins Wolverine. That's all I have for the background information. Moving on to the neutral zone. Those elements about the pen that are neither good or bad, or can be good or bad, depending on you. The nib is our familiar 14 karat gold Hyperflex nib designed by the great Double DV, and it's made by Bock. It bears the standard markings and branding we've seen before. The feed is a standard Bock single ink channel feed. We see these in our Bock nib units. The nib and feed are part of an unscrewable nib unit. The nib unit screws into the chamber that is the body of the mystery filler. This chamber screws into the barrel, and the metal section actually screws onto the body of the mystery filler ink chamber as opposed to the barrel, like most other pens. The top of the section has a knurled pattern. This is most likely put there to make any scuffing caused by the magnetic capping imperceivable. The barrel is made of the material that is the star of the show and has a slight taper towards the end where it meets a small metal collar. This collar is where the push-button mechanism is located to activate the mystery piston filler. Press this, and the knob extends, enabling you to turn it, thus activating the piston. When you're done, you push it back in, and you're good to go. The bottom of the knob is engraved with the model and its limited edition number of 888. The cap is more the same material as the body and retains the familiar design of the La Grande Bellezza series. The finial has the brand name in relief style letters. The clip is a feather quill, the trademark of the La Grande Bellezza series. I like saying La Grande Bellezza. The center band is the same center band as on the La Grande Bellezza Arco, with the brand name on the front. And the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog, scrolled on the back. It's a very original quote. The pen was packaged in an off-white cardboard box. Inside that box, the doorstop looking box that we all know and love and make fun of. Open that up and of course is your pen. In the upper shelf of the box is a cutout holding a Pineider pen filler and a pipette with which to fill said pen filler. In the box you also get a paper sleeve filled with product information including warranty info and brand information that I never actually read. Now let's talk about the way the nib writes. It's okay. Is it great? No. Yet at the same time, is it bad? No again. So let's discuss the reasons. I find that the way this pen writes to be somewhat stingy in the ink flow department. which is an issue for a nib that is designed to offer an increased degree of line variation. Although railroading was not something that occurred with an unreasonable amount of frequency, it was enough times within a couple of sentences to pull me away from the writing experience. Instead of enjoying the line variation offered and focusing on the artistry, or rather my attempt at being artistic while writing, I found myself more worried about whether the ink flow would come through for me in the coming words. I also found that the amount of line variation to be lacking compared to my previous Hyperflex nibs. This may be because of the stingier amount of ink flow that I mentioned before. Whatever it was, it diminished my experience with writing with this pen and what the Hyperflex nib is supposed to offer. When it comes to normal writing though, I am pleased to say that this bad boy is spanking in this department. It's definitely smooth, bouncy, and reliable. That's all I have for the neutral zone. Moving on to the good. Those elements about the pen that are good. Does anyone remember the gripes I had with the Pineider La Grande Bellezza Arco, in how the grip section over time developed scuffing that was caused by the mere act of capping? Well, guess what? That issue is not present here in the forged carbon. In the Arco, that issue was met by applying Teflon to the interior of the cap in hopes that the Teflon would prevent the scratches. This attempt was a failed attempt, as the scratches managed to find its home in this section. The solution this time around with the forged carbon was by altering the actual section. Double DV, being as awesome as he is, actually re-engineered the section to be more narrow, so that during the act of capping, the interior of the cap never makes contact with the section, and thus doesn't cause any damage to the section. I love it. I especially love that Dante DV is so active in addressing the concerns of the fountain pen virus infected. When it comes to the aesthetics of this pen, the forged carbon looks as though it's a metallic fluid in constant motion. It's an unusual and unique look. I think that the amalgamation of high-tech and classic looks really, good. I got good words. The pen in the hand feels like a solid, advanced piece of writing technology. It's, again, to me, the closest thing there is to an adamantium pen. They may not be willing to admit it, but I think that's what they were going for. That's all I have for the good. Moving on to the bad. Let's talk coin. This pen has an MSRP of $1,000. That's not cheap. But at retailers online here in the US, this pen can be had for a discounted price of $800. That's not cheap. So, is the price of the pen worth it? Stay tuned and find out. That's all I have for the bad. Moving on to the ugly. Those elements about the pen that should not be, but are. This is going to be one of the hardest reviews I've ever written. Why? Because I am such a huge fan of Dante Del Vecchio. I consider him a personal friend and I love and respect the guy. However, being that the core of who I am is in having the balls to always be fair and impartial, I have to point out some glaring flaws in the design of the forged carbon. This is going to hurt me more than it's going to hurt you. I don't want to do it. Okay, here goes. 3 of these pens came into my possession. Out of the 3, 2 of them had a visible bow curve. If you look carefully, the pen is curved and not straight. The reason this is happening is in the nuances of manufacturing. Take a look at the interior of the barrel. There is a brass thread assembly that is inside the barrel. Now look very carefully at the forged carbon edge as the barrel rotates. Do you see how as the barrel rotates, the edge of the carbon fiber is uneven and at some points in its circumference even rises above the barrel thread assembly? Well, this is what causes the curve in the pen. See, when the section is screwed on, you either have a visible gap where the section meets the barrel, but only on one side because the section is not securely screwed onto the barrel. Or you have no gap because the section is completely screwed onto the barrel, but because of the area of the forged carbon that is raised above the thread assembly, the section is forced into a slight slant. So when the pen is capped, it's visible. Now, like I said, 2 of the 3 I got were affected. There was one where the barrel was cut precisely and evenly and was therefore unaffected. But 1 out of 3 are not very good odds. This is grossly unacceptable, particularly for a pen at this price. And for the amount of brilliance and thought Dante invested into this pen's design, it is even more so unacceptable on the part of the people making the pen to allow something like this to happen ever. I don't blame Dante. I even told Dante as much. It's like this. Ludwig van Beethoven was a composer. He was a brilliant composer. In his time, he even composed music that pushed the abilities of the violinists. So when they performed his chamber music, every now and then, a violinist who didn't practice enough would screw up. And that's the violinist's fault, not Beethoven's. This is the same thing. Dante is Beethoven, and a violinist at the Pineider workshop screwed up, and they screwed up bad, plain and simple. That's all I have for the ugly. It's high noon, decision-making time. Should you or should you not pull the trigger on the Pineider La Grande Bellezza forged carbon fountain pen? Here's where being a reviewer sucks. Dante, if you're watching this, I love you and I hope you don't hate me forever. But as it is, with the flaws that I've discovered, there has got to be a remedy for the curve in the pen before I or anyone can confidently say, pull the trigger. Now, before anyone loses all hope because you guys out there were planning on pulling the trigger on this pen, follow my instructions. When you buy the pen, make sure you speak to a person. Then tell said person to watch this video. Then ask said person to check the pen you're about to buy and have them, 1, ensure that the section is securely screwed onto the barrel, since a section not completely screwed down can give the illusion that the pen is cut right. And then 2, ask them to do a roll test by laying the uncapped pen on a flat surface and then roll the pen back and forth while watching it eye level. If the section doesn't lob up and down, you're good to go. Otherwise, I have to say, move on and find another one. That was my review of the Pineider La Grande Bellezza forged carbon fountain pen. I hope you found it helpful, because I hate myself for doing it. Thanks again for watching. Love you guys. Be well, be safe.